All right, traders, welcome to the automation section of the PineScript Mastery course. In this presentation, I'm going to go over some of the important limitations to be aware of when automating your scripts through Pine, as well as some of the advantages. So let's get started. So what are some limitations of using strategy scripts with PineScript and TradingView? The first important limitation is that we have limited historical data to work with, especially intraday historical data. What this means is that we have a limited ability to test the robustness of our scripts throughout various market conditions and situations that might cause our strategy stress. So for example, if we have a trend following strategy, you really want to test how the strategy performs over long periods of volatility, consolidation, choppy price action. And depending on the time frame you're testing, it may be very difficult to be able to test your strategy over enough market conditions to have confidence in its ability to withstand various market conditions. So depending on your TradingView plan, you will have access to a different number of historical bars. The more money you spend on your plan, the more historical data you get. But even on the most expensive plan, which I'm on, I still don't get a lot of intraday data, especially on those lower time frames like the 15-minute chart and below. I can only backtest some of my strategies a few years into the past if I'm lucky. And on a 5-minute or 1-minute chart, you might be lucky to get a few weeks of price data. This is a big problem when it comes to properly testing your strategies to prove that they've had an edge over historical price action and may continue to have an edge. This is why most of my strategies are traded on the 1 hour, 4 hour, and daily charts, at least the strategies I trade through TradingView. Those are the only time frames that I get adequate data to be able to have confidence in my strategy. Another limitation of working with PineScript and strategies is that the inbuilt TradingView strategy tester's capabilities are extremely limited, at least comparatively speaking, compared to other more advanced testing platforms. So for example, if I load up Amy Broker here and I throw on one of my scripts that I created for backtesting through the stock market and I run a test real quick. So here, for example, I can choose something like the S&P 500 universe, and I can even include the current and past historical constituents of that index. So over time, the 500 stocks that are included in the S&P 500 change. Some lose market capitalization, some go out of business, and they get replaced by up-and-coming companies that better deserve their position in this index. You can't do that with TradingView or PineScript. TradingView will only give you the current tradable instruments in any market universe, and so particularly for stock trading strategies and crypto, it introduces an element of survivorship bias, meaning that your test results are only conducted on markets that have survived the test of time, which may skew your results a little bit compared to what results you would get if you were to trade your strategy in real time. So if I click OK here, and I run a backtest, I can run this script across the entire universe of S&P 500 stocks from 2010 to 2022. If I click backtest and wait a little while, here is a list of my results from that time period. You can see that the results are nicely organized. The TradingView strategy tester does a similar thing, but it's not quite as advanced as something like this platform here, Amy Broker. And if I open up my report, I can see a whole bunch of trade metrics here, like my annualized return, my risk-adjusted return, that sort of thing. And I can even open up charts showing my equity curve and underwater equity curve. I can see a yearly chart of my returns over the backtesting period. And I get a lot of advanced metrics here, including Monte Carlo simulations. And all of these metrics help me to build a robust trading strategy. And it's much more difficult to do that sort of thing with TradingView's tester system and PineScript. It's not impossible, but it is a little bit more challenging. You need to get a little bit more creative. If you really want to adequately test a system, you may need to use a custom spreadsheet, that sort of thing, which is a little bit outside of the scope of this course, but I'll do my best to sort of introduce you to the way I do things in a simple to understand and implement fashion. One other limitation of PineScript is that we cannot run our scripts across a universe of markets like I just showed you I could do through Amy Broker. And if you want to trade a universe of markets, it means you must set at least one alert per market, and sometimes more than one alert, depending on how your system works. So with automating PineScript, we actually have to use alerts to send the commands to our broker. Now, obviously, a script can generate more than one alert, but depending on how complex your strategy is, you may need to use more than one set alert. You may need to set multiple alerts in your script in order to adequately manage your automation. Now, let's talk about some of the limitations with the third-party APIs themselves. So first of all, automating our scripts in PineScript requires the use of third-party APIs. If you're not familiar with what an API is an acronym for Application Programming Interface, and this jargon is loosely defined as a software intermediary that allows two applications to talk to each other. So two unrelated applications can speak with each other through the use of an API. In this case, this would be our PineScript code sending an alert filled with information or commands to a third-party service that then interprets those commands and forwards them on to our broker. PineScript itself was never designed to be an automated language, but some creative people out there have created some services that do allow you to achieve this, and even though it's not perfect, it does actually work. Now, the catch with third-party APIs is they generally cost money, usually a monthly or annual subscription, so that does add to your cost of trading, your cost of doing business. You are also wholly dependent on the third-party service, which means if they have any downtime or any bugs in their software, that's all out of your control. Now, this is the case for most automated trading services and systems, but this is a limitation compared to, for example, creating your own system from scratch using a more advanced language like Python or something like that. Another limitation of third-party APIs is that they typically require that you have a computer running 24/7. This could be a computer at your house, or it could be a cloud-based server like Amazon Web Services. Or there are many, many other services out there that provide cloud-based rented computers. So a couple of examples of third-party APIs that I'm personally familiar with is AutoView. AutoView is a Chrome browser extension. It mainly works for Forex and crypto. That's what it's mainly designed for. So it can connect to various crypto exchanges, and it can also connect to Oanda, the Forex broker. And I sometimes talk with one of the co-creators of AutoView. And last time we spoke, he told me that they are working on implementing other Forex brokers, but they're mainly a crypto service. So unless you have access to the Oanda Forex broker, your only real option is to trade through crypto exchanges at the moment, at least as of recording this, but that may change in the future. Another popular service out there that we can use to automate our Forex and CFD trading is PineConnector. Now, PineConnector is a MetaTrader expert advisor. So it's basically a script that runs in MetaTrader, and it can receive your TradingView alerts, interpret the information in those alerts, and forward those commands to your broker through MetaTrader. I personally use AutoView and PineConnector depending on the strategy I'm trading. Sometimes a script I've written is more suited to one or the other, but they both work pretty similarly. And then finally, if you're a crypto trader, you have multiple options when it comes to third-party auto trading APIs. One of the most common ones, and one of the ones that I'm familiar with personally, is 3commas.io, which is a online trading bot that integrates with TradingView alerts. The catch with crypto trading third-party APIs is they are usually extremely complex, at least compared to Forex and CFD trading APIs like AutoView and PineConnector, which are relatively simple to set up. For whatever reason, in the crypto sphere or cryptoverse, everyone loves to make their trading bots and systems incredibly complex, which does make it a little bit difficult to automate through PineScript, but it can be done. When it comes to stocks, there are no options that I know of that allow you to trade stocks unless you're trading CFDs on stocks, in which case you may be able to use PineConnector. If you come across a third-party API that integrates with TradingView alerts and allows you to trade the stock market, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Now, let's move on to a few things that are very important to know and understand thoroughly when working with third-party APIs. The first most important thing to understand is that there is a dislocation of prices between your third-party API and the actual price feed on TradingView. So for example, if you are using PineConnector through MetaTrader, your MetaTrader price feed is going to be slightly different to the TradingView price feed, even if you are using the same broker on TradingView as you are in MetaTrader. Obviously, if you're using a different broker to your TradingView price feed, it's going to be even more dislocated. Now, this dislocation can range from less than a pip to several pips. So it's quite an important thing to understand. When you send your buy and sell orders and your limit orders, your take profit, stop loss, etc., to something like PineConnector or MetaTrader, you may need to get creative with how you handle the dislocation of price between those two platforms. So let me show you a quick example before we move on, because it's really important you understand what I mean here. So here I am on Global Prime. I'm on my demo account through MetaTrader. I'm on Aussie Swiss on the 5-minute chart. You can see the price feed down here where my mouse is on the right axis. If I bring this window down a little bit and out to the side, you can see in the background, I also have Aussie Swiss open on Global Prime on the 5-minute chart through TradingView. And if you watch the price feed here on the right and the left, you can see there is a slight dislocation there. Most of the time, they're pretty similar, if not identical. Right now, it's identical, 69197. But now MetaTrader is 203 and this is 204. You can see that there's just a slight dislocation there. Depending on your broker, this dislocation could be quite significant and may affect your trading results in real time when you go to automate your scripts, or it may not affect it at all. I find that with Global Prime through MetaTrader using Pine Connector on most pairs, at least on the Forex markets, there's not a big difference between the price feeds. And so I haven't had any major issues with my real-time trading wildly differing from my testing and my alerts being sent from TradingView. There will also be a delay between when TradingView generates your alert and sends that data to your third-party API and your third-party API acting on that information. So for example, if your TradingView script sends a market order to buy or sell, by the time Pine Connector or any other third-party API receives that command, it's possible that the price may have moved a few pips between the order being received and acted on. So keep that in mind. That is an important limitation to be aware of when working with third-party APIs. These are just things we have to live with as Pine scripters, and we need to make sure that we do as good a job as possible at mitigating these issues in our code and our system design itself. Now, there is also the issue of spread. Your script cannot know the spread that your broker is currently employing. So if you're using market orders, for example, you may get a much worse fill on your order than you expected to. That's why I always encourage people to use limit orders when they're automating their scripts. That does help to mitigate the issue of spread. And as I mentioned earlier, there is also the issue of a slight delay in your order execution. Normally the delay is not a big issue, and sometimes it can work in your favor. You know, if you send a order to enter a trade and there's a slight delay between that order being sent and being executed, sometimes that might give you a better entry price than you would have had if there was no delay. So it does kind of even itself out over time, but that is an issue to be aware of. Now, one other thing that is extremely important to understand when working with third-party APIs is that PineScript cannot receive data. It can only send data. So PineScript, when it comes to third-party automations and APIs, is a write-only process. It can only send data. It cannot read data from the third-party API. And what this means is that there is also, in addition to a dislocation with price feeds, there's a dislocation of the state of your trades. The one-way communication means that PineScript cannot account for slippage, as I mentioned earlier. If you get a fill that's slightly different to what your script thinks you got, PineScript doesn't know that there's a difference there. So PineScript cannot know where you entered your position. That's why I always encourage traders to use limit orders when automating their scripts, because that does help make sure that PineScript and your broker and your third-party API are on the same page. Another problem is that PineScript does not know your real account balance, your open equity, or your open profit and loss on any given trade or any given set of trades. It doesn't know how much margin you have available. It doesn't know how much leverage you are employing. So these are things that you need to sort of hard code into your script or your third-party API when you're working with automation through Pine. This also means that it's practically impossible to manage complex trading strategies. For example, pyramiding is not ideal with PineScript automation. It can be done, but it's very, very tricky to manage multiple open positions on a single market through most third-party APIs. This also means it's difficult, if not impossible, to create extremely complex strategies. In my opinion, and in my experience, simple is best. And the less that can go wrong with your script in terms of all of these limitations, the dislocation of price, of trade states, of whether you're in an open position or not, whether you have enough open margin, and so on, the less that all of those limitations can impact the profitability of your script, the better. Or in other words, the more simple your script is, the easier it's going to be to automate it successfully. If you want to write extremely complex scripts that have multiple moving parts, pyramiding, scaling out, taking into account sentiment or any other external data, especially data that isn't accessible through things like Quandl, for example, in PineScript, you're going to need to learn a more advanced programming language to achieve that. I have several scripts that I automate through PineScript that are profitable. However, they are all very, very simple scripts and they don't have a lot of complexity or moving parts to them. So keep that in mind as you move into automating your scripts through Pine. Simple is best. Now, those are the most important limitations I have come across through working with automation through Pine. What are some benefits of working with Pine in terms of automating our scripts? Well, first of all, as I've said multiple times, especially in the beginning of the course, it's extremely easy to create scripts in PineScript, relatively speaking, compared to other languages. There's not a lot of back-end work you need to do. All of that's done and handled in PineScript directly. Things like accessing price feeds, historical data, that's all built into Pine, which makes it really easy to create scripts. That's a huge advantage when it comes to our trading process in terms of being efficient with our time. It's also a limitation. I went over that already, but it's also very efficient and fast at testing ideas. There's minimal friction involved in converting a trading idea in your head into code and running preliminary backtests, which is really valuable because our time is extremely valuable, and the faster we can get an idea from our head onto paper, or in this case, into code, the better. That's a huge advantage of PineScript because PineScript has lots of valuable inbuilt tools and features since Pine is a domain-specific language. Pine was built specifically for the TradingView platform, specifically to analyze price. And so all the fluff is cut out compared to more general purpose languages like Python or Java or languages like that. And that's what makes it so efficient and fast at creating scripts and testing ideas is a lot of the legwork is already done for us. A lot of the popular indicators and trading analysis processes are all inbuilt into Pine, and we can generally reference most indicators or analysis techniques with a single line of code. And if not, maybe it takes a couple of lines of code. So that's a huge advantage of using Pine compared to the alternatives out there. Another benefit is the relatively low cost of doing business compared to the alternatives out there when it comes to automated trading. So for example, when I showed you some of the testing I've been working on through a completely different platform called Amy Broker, that platform cost me about $359 just for the mid-range option in terms of functionality and features. And I spent around $2,000 or $3,000 on end-of-day data feeds. So intraday data feeds are even more expensive. With TradingView, all of that is included in one flat rate, including a free account. Now, the free account has a bunch of limitations in terms of how many alerts you can set, how much historical data you have access to. So I wouldn't recommend automating your scripts based on a free account, but the option is there. Otherwise, if you want to go for their top plan, which I'm on, which allows me unlimited alerts and a lot more historical data, that costs about $600 US dollars per year as a flat rate. And you don't have to add on data feeds unless you're a stock trader. All of that is included. Another thing to consider with Amy Broker is that, or any other charting platform that allows for script development and automated trading systems, is that most of them require integration with a broker as well. Now, I know that there are services like TradeStation that have an inbuilt language into their platform that allows you to trade stocks directly through your broker. But with something like Amy Broker, which is a very advanced platform for strategy development and testing, they are not directly connected to a broker. So you would have to add on the cost of integrating something like Interactive Brokers or some other stockbroker or Forex broker, whatever it is that you trade. Integrating that into a alternative platform to TradingView can be quite expensive as well. Now, in terms of working with TradingView and third-party APIs, I'm only familiar with Pine Connector, AutoView, and 3 and I know that AutoView costs about $270 US per year as a subscription, which is relatively cheap if you're a serious trader. You should be able to afford that if you are serious about automating your trading. Pine Connector, on the other hand, is nearly half the price of AutoView at $149 US per year. And as I mentioned, Amy Broker cost me over $2,000, closer to $3,000, and that's only including end-of-day stock data, not intraday data. So comparatively speaking, auto trading through TradingView is pretty damn cheap. Now, some other benefits of working with TradingView and third-party APIs is that TradingView and PineScript runs in your browser in the cloud, which means you can just set and forget your alerts. It's not particularly complex or difficult to set up your alerts in your trading system. You can also manage your scripts and alerts from anywhere in the world at any time, so long as you have access to the internet. You can jump into your browser, go to tradingview.com, log in, and everything's there. Your scripts are there and your alerts are there, all in the one place, all online in the cloud. TradingView also have A-grade tech support, Their team is always very fast to respond, and in my experience, they have always been extremely helpful. And then finally, perhaps the most beneficial aspect of TradingView and PineScript is that there's a huge global community that work with Pine, and there are tons of open source scripts out there that you can borrow code from or steal code from. I've done that plenty of times in my coding journey. There's a lot of ideas out there to be inspired by, and just generally a lot of support out there for this language and trading platform, especially compared to the alternatives out there. Like Amy Broker, for example, is extremely difficult to find valuable and accessible information on. They have a lot of extensive documentation, but there's nothing like this, like the PineScript Mastery course that I've created. There's nothing like that for Amy Broker, which makes the friction in learning the language and developing systems for it extremely high. In Pine, I can figure out how to do something relatively complex relatively quickly. In something like Amy Broker, it can take hours and hours and hours of research and trial and error in order to figure out how to get something to work. We don't have that issue with TradingView because there is such a big community that the TradingView team have galvanized. So, in summary, automation with PineScript is tricky, but certainly not impossible. There is lots to consider in terms of navigating the various limitations of PineScript when it comes to automating our strategies. And therefore, in my opinion, and from my experience, I believe that simple is best. Don't get over ambitious with your trading system ideas. Be conservative in terms of what you want to achieve with your automated scripts. If you want to run a hedge fund out of automated systems, you're probably going to need to learn a different language than Pine. But if you just want to automate some of your simpler strategies in the background of your normal trading, PineScript is perfect for that. I have several simple scripts I've written over the years that lend really well to automation. They're completely rules-based, very black and white, sort of if-then strategies. Those types of strategies lend really well to automation through Pine. Another thing I want to mention in the summary is that you should always demo trade your ideas before putting real money at risk. And when you do become confident enough with your system to put real money at risk, make sure that you are prepared to lose all of your risk capital if something goes wrong. Or in other words, don't trade more than you're willing to lose. Now, that obviously goes for manual trading as well. There's plenty that can go wrong with manual trading, namely in terms of trading psychology or not having an edge. But when it comes to automated systems, if there's a bug in your script or a bug in the third-party API, there is the risk that you may lose a lot more than you expect to. So be extremely careful with that. Don't put any money into your automated trading systems that you desperately need or would be extremely pained to lose. Now, in my experience, I've never had an issue. I've never had any scripts go haywire and blow an account. That's never happened to me, but I'm fully aware that that risk is realistic and it's possible that that could happen if I overlook something or something goes wrong with the third-party API. I don't have control over their code. I don't know what they're doing under the hood with their software. So I'm always cautious, and that's another reason why I use multiple APIs and split my risk across different services, different accounts, different strategies, different markets, etc. And then finally, automation through PineScript is as experimental as it gets. TradingView don't discourage us from doing it, the TradingView developers, but they certainly don't support automation. They've added webhook functionality to Pine and placeholder functionality. They've made it a lot easier for us to automate our scripts, but that is not the purpose of Pine. It's best to think of automation through Pine as like a bonus experimental feature. Therefore, this experimental application of Pine is to be used completely at your own risk. You need to take responsibility for the results that occur, recognize that you are volunteering in this experiment, and that this is all at your own risk. You can't hold anyone else accountable if something goes wrong, because we are doing something with Pine that it was never intended to do. But in saying that, so far, over the past year and a half of experimenting with automation in Pine, it does work. It is possible to automate your scripts. I wouldn't waste my time or your time developing this section of the course if I didn't think it was a valuable and interesting and possible application of Pine. But just be aware that we are pioneers of this experimental application of PineScript, and there's plenty that could go wrong if we're not careful. Anyway, that's it for this presentation. I hope you found this interesting. In the lessons to come, we'll go into obviously practical applications of all of this information. I'll be converting some of the scripts we've already created in previous sections of the course into automated scripts. I'll have plenty of examples, plenty of template code that you can copy and paste into your own scripts to very quickly and easily add automation capabilities to those scripts. And I'm really excited to explore this aspect of Pine with you. I know this presentation has focused more on the doom and gloom side of things, and I've kind of focused almost exclusively on the negatives of auto trading through Pine. But that's important so that we have a realistic expectation going forward. And in the material to come, I'll do the best job I can to introduce you to various techniques and approaches to automating scripts that I've used successfully in the past. And I hope you guys find that material interesting. As always, good luck with your trading. Be careful out there, and I'll speak with you in the lessons to come.